If you're considering to purchase a new home or even selling a home, having perspective in this real estate market can make all the difference. Here we have a quote from Barry Habib from MBS Highway, someone that I highly respect and follow on a daily basis. Basically summarizes what's going on with inflation, how that's going to put us in a more favorable position for interest rates to move lower, and where that target rate, potentially within the next 6 months, is going to start with a 5. Now, we've all seen interest rates climb with inflation and tip at the highest point of that 7% range. But to see a number start with the 5, well, if you go back in the earlier part of 2022, when interest rates were in the 5s, the housing market was very strong. Officer here in Seattle, educating clients and giving perspective has always been a commitment. Here in this chart that I pulled from Freddie Mac, this shows the interest rate range dating all the way back to 2008 of the Great Recession. The blue line is a 30-year fixed, the green line is a 15-year fixed. Just a note, whenever you see interest rates on a trend of moving lower, it definitely increases the housing sales. When you see a spike in a transition year as interest rates move higher, definitely in this next slide, you can see that the housing sales do definitely have a transition. So as we moved out of the Great Recession, and as interest rates move lower, you can see slowly that the housing prices, the housing sales did start to increase. However, when you had a hiccup here in 2014 and interest rates moved slightly higher, you can see that the housing sales are directly impacted. Let's go back and look at the chart. There's 2013, 2014. We saw the interest rates move higher. In direct result, it impacted the real estate sales through 2014. Looking into the forecast and the crystal ball of home sales for 2023, they pulled the 4 leading authorities. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which are the 2 lending pillars of the United States, the Mortgage Bankers Association, National Association of Realtors. From the 4, the average was at 5.1 million. When comparing that to the 5.8 million, of course, down from 2022, however, at 5.1 million, you'd have to go all the way back to 2012. Looking at the interest rates of where they were in 2012, let's take a look. We're hovering between that 3 to 4% range. Is it possible that interest rates are going to get back there? Right now, that seems unlikely. As Barry Habib said, we see them in the mid-5s. But why that's important is because if we do see them in the mid-5s comparing to the 7, that increases the buying power by 2%. Buyers definitely saw their buying power deteriorated because of the spike in interest rates. But in any decline of interest rates, we can always show that the housing annual sales do start to increase. In this quote from Mark Fleming, chief economist of one of the larger title and escrow companies, First American, he points out the continued strong demographic. Who is that strong demographic? It is the millennial. They're the largest demographic of buyers coming to the table since the baby boomer generation. In this quote from Doug Duncan, Senior Vice President, Chief Economist of Fannie Mae, I want to point out to how it's ended, a brief recession. Being optimistic in nature, I hope that it is short-lived. But in this presentation, my point to show when interest rates come from a higher point, just as we saw last year in November, rates tipping at that 7% range. And as I started here with Barry Habib, interest rates moving in the next 6 months, hopefully into that 5% range. And any time in real estate history, as that interest rate decreases, the sales come back. And that's what in this statement we're tying into how the U.S. economy is going to recover as that interest rate moves lower, the buyers come back, now the sales begin to increase, and that's what's going to start pressuring as we come out of this recession. Over historical time, you see that housing values slowly begin to appreciate during a recession because the interest rates are lower, buyers can afford more, and that sends us on our road to recovery. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.